All right, we're making roux. I've got this induction stove on 5 medium heat, cast iron. We're gonna make roux. It's debatable on how you do it, why you do it, etc. I'm gonna show you how I do it. Make sure to get your skillet hot. Heavy double bottom. It doesn't matter if it's one of those aluminum things or cast iron or whatever. It's got to be a heavy double bottom pan. If you have all clad works. The 3 and 5 ply Viking, that also works. Cast iron works. Whatever, the only pans, aluminum pans they use in Magnolites. Use those, whatever. As long as it's a heavy bottom pan, use that. So we're gonna make this come up, and I want this hot before I add my flour to it. Because if not, it's gonna take forever to get your roux up. You gotta be here anyway. It's gonna stir constantly, but at least get your hot oil going before you get to that point. I'm gonna tell you right now, roux is one of those things, it does only 2 functions. 1 is for color, and 2 is for thickening. That is it. And the darker you get your roux, the less thickening power it has. So if you just want color, roux doesn't taste anything. I dare you to take and make a roux and say, hey, this roux tastes really good. It adds flavor to your gumbo. No, it doesn't. All it does is add color and a little bit of thickening power. That way it's just not water. So oil and flour, use with stocks. Butter and flour, use with dairy like milk and heavy cream, stuff like that. And that's kind of your baseline. Now you can interchange them, interchange the butter and flour one and use chicken stock, but you cannot interchange the oil and flour and use the cream. That just don't work. So today we're making turkey gumbo. In the back here, I've got a whole turkey making stock. So I want to show you guys full video, how to make roux, step by step. There's a million comments out there on how to do it. So we're gonna go with a full video. No breaks. See how that's not ready yet? We want that oil to get up to temp. So when we start working this, we start working it. 2 utensils. Whisk, wooden spoon. Preferably a flat wooden spoon where you can scrape the bottom and make sure that all those little bits don't really burn on the bottom. If you smell it burning, start over. Just, that's the simple fact. There's no saving it after that. If you don't watch it, it will burn. And if it burns, you're done. Kick this up just a notch. I don't normally do this for videos, so it's one of those things. Once you get on camera and once you start making these, it all goes to hell sometimes. But anyway, I get my oil hot. I want my oil hot. Just speeds up this process. But once you start incorporating your flour, you have to turn that heat back down because this cast iron does stay hot. And so if you don't watch it, you will burn your roux and you're gonna have a bad day. What I wanna see is I wanna see this to start bubbling. You can see that this is getting about right. A little bit at a time. I want to get all those chunks out. So doing 2 cups of oil, 3 cups of flour. I don't do mine a 1-to-1 ratio simply for the fact that you're gonna have oil left over. I'll show you that later. And at the end of my gumbo, I don't have oil sitting on the top of my gumbo. We still have this on 7 in induction. Make sure we get all this incorporated. Just got to work it. And turn this down to 5. I don't want it to splatter everywhere. All right, so we've worked all this. See how smooth it is? Now we're going to the browning phase. I like to keep whisking this in the beginning. That way it doesn't have a time. I can't even talk. It doesn't have time to stick to the bottom. Also, you get all this flour and oil incorporated. There's no clumps. We got this temperature and this oil hot. So don't leave. The only time you can leave if you turn this thing down to like 2 on the induction. Turn it down to 2 and just let it sit. And then about every 5 minutes, you can come back and scrape the bottom. But these early stages are very important. There's going to be a million trolls on these videos going, this is not how you do it. That's not how you do it. You're not from Louisiana. You can't do this. Blah, 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 blah. Do it your way. Do whatever works for you. I'm going to tell you something. Most people don't really know how to make a roux in the first place. That's why they ask so many questions on Facebook. Like I said, this is super important. You may not see nothing going on, but that's what's going on right there. Your oil is boiling, essentially, with this flour. So the key thing that you want to do with this roux is going to get to a stage to where it's going to start browning, it's going to start getting thick. You're wanting to cook this flour down and cook this flour out. And then, once you get your roux done and you put it in your gumbo, then you got to cook the flour out of that roux. And that's why gumbos take 4 to 6 hours to make. It's not this process because I'm making stock back here. It's the 2 hours of boiling this and getting the flour cooked out of it with your stock before you add any seasoning at all. So to make a good gumbo takes time. I've made enough of these. I can tell you, I've messed up every which way but loose. But a good gumbo takes time and it takes effort. A little bit of patience. I'm gonna kick this up to 7. Make sure we start getting some browning on here. Like I said, it's 2 cups of oil, 3 cups of all-purpose flour. You can use self-rising if you want. Doesn't make a difference at all. There's a big, great debate on that. The baking soda and the baking powder that's out of the self-rising will cook out and you won't have fluffy gumbo. Whatever you got on hand, it'll work. So these people that make gumbo and put it in the freezer or your refrigerator section, and they cook it and they already have gumbo made and they make in huge batches. They make them with these huge steam jacket kettles. So it really doesn't have the opportunity to burn because you're actually got the steam jacket around, and then they can let them just sit there for hours and hours, and nobody's there with a big paddle doing this. Just let it cook down. But if you have something like that, like a double boiler or something, you could essentially do the same thing. But we're not making huge batches. We're gonna let that sit for a minute. Move over here, make sure I get all my edges on this wooden spoon. You see how this is mainly kind of creamy instead of real watery? That's what I like. I don't like a ton of oil in this. I'm gonna show you a trick at the end of this to how I get the rest of the oil out of this, or where I have just plain roux. That way I don't have to skim anything that I make with a roux, especially my gumbo. It's the last thing you want is a bunch of oil sitting on top of it. Still got this thing at 7. We're gonna stir, we're gonna keep this thing going. There's gonna be a point to where it's gonna start changing colors, and once it starts changing colors, it's gonna be quick. But we're doing a pretty big amount of roux here. And if you're wondering, 1 cup of roux will do 1 gallon of gumbo. So 1-to-1 oil ratio if you want to do it. I do a 3-to-2, 3 parts of flour to 2 parts oil. If you're doing 2 gallons of gumbo, use 2 cups of this roux. If you use 1 gallon, use 1 cup of roux. That's really going to be based on what you want and how thick you want it. So the best thing to do is just add a little bit at a time until you figure out what you want and what you like in your gumbo. There's no correct way to make gumbo. There's a million ways to do it, and everybody's going to tell you different. So if you like hot dogs in yours, or you like beanie weenies, or if you like eggs, or whatever you like, gumbo's a gumbo. Now you see right there, if you let it sit for a minute, you start getting these little brown bits. That's that oil and flour sticking to the bottom. And let it sit here for a minute on this high temp. You see some brown bits come up. You see some right there. And that's what you're doing, essentially, is you're browning this thing. You can make this gumbo or this roux whatever color you want. You can keep it like this, it works. Add some Worcestershire sauce to it or some kitchen bouquet or whatever, and you can darken it up. And it has some thickening power. This right here probably has the maximum thickening power. Now, so if you like it burnt, well, that's on you. I like mine more of a dark peanut butter type color for my gumbo. That's what I like. So I still like it to have some thickening power, and I like that color. I don't like it black. Once you get it starting to get real dark and starting to get real black, people say it's got a nutty flavor to it. I don't know what you're talking about. There ain't no damn nutty flavor and nothing. It tastes burnt. The next time somebody tells you it's got a nutty flavor, tell them to get a big old spoonful of roux and put it in their mouth. You're gonna see something you don't want to see. See that little brown bit right there? I don't know if you can see it. Let's see. And you can start seeing those little brown bits, a little bit of discoloration. That's what we're looking for. We're still on 7 with our induction. I'd rather keep stirring this than let it burn. See it right there? If you can see that. Focus. And we're starting to get to the point to where it's starting to stick. I'm scraping the sides, and I like this flat one here. That way I don't miss anything. Because when you use this right here, you're going to miss some stuff. It's not going to get in the corners. It's a lot harder to get everything off the bottom. Which, you can use that, it's not a problem. These right here, just because they're flat. Now you can do something different. You don't have to use wood if you don't want to use wood. I'll show you something else different you can use if you want to use something. But you need to make sure that it's high temp. And that's the thing. A high temp spatula. So if you see these right here, I don't know what kind they are, but where I got them. But any food store or whatnot, or Amazon or what, these are high temp spatulas. So they're good to 500, 550 degrees. You have to make sure and check out what temperature they're good for, but they're high temp spatulas. You can use those just as well as if you don't want to use a wooden spoon. So it's really up to you what you want to use. The only requirement for this is to make sure that you have a heavy double bottom pot, something to scrape the bottom, whisk this, keep it going. That heavy double bottom pot's going to keep the heat going and keep that heat regulated. That way it stays hot the whole time. Then you can get a bit of flour off of this thing right here. But you're starting to see some bits. Still got this thing on 7, so we're rolling. And we are 18 minutes into this video. Oh, I'm posting the whole thing. Is that color changing? Now, when I turn this down to 5, you still can't walk away from it because the pot's still hot. That's the difference with these heavy bottom pots, is these pots are going to stay hot. Look at that, just for a minute. See right there, those bits going down there? This pot's going to stay hot, so don't say you can just turn it down to low and leave it. You still got to work it even after you turn that temperature down, whether you use gas, induction, especially electric, because electric doesn't cool down like the induction and gas does. You got to stay with it because the pot's still hot. You got to remember these things. Don't turn it off or turn it on 2 and leave it. You will still burn it at the stage. I know a lot of you are probably watching this video thinking, yeah, why don't we do this? Why don't we just buy it out of a jar? Look at those ingredients in the jar. You gotta have stabilizers. You gotta have adulterated products, stuff like that. You know exactly what's going in your stuff. I don't want no chemicals. I don't want nobody else's recipe. Because once we get this roux to where we like it, then we're going to start flavoring. This thing has 0 flavor. We're going to start adding, you can add sausage to it. You can add your Trinity to it. And that's essentially what you're doing is after this step right here, you're going to add onions and you're going to add bell peppers and you're going to add garlic. You're going to add all kinds of stuff to start flavoring this. Then you're going to start adding your liquid to it. And then once you start adding your liquid to it, it's going to start thickening up. And then that's when you want to cook all this flour out. And that's the time-consuming part. I mean, I let mine cook down for 2 hours until I can't taste any of this roux because I don't want to taste it. And then your seasoning, you don't start seasoning until after that point. So we got this down to a medium heat. Dogs barking in the background, that's always fun. Medium heat, we're still stirring. Almost to that peanut butter stage right here. Nothing's burnt. Stirring, taking our time. Now I'm doing this for a video. Now, you don't have to stay here the whole time. You can do other things. You can multitask at the same time. You don't have to stay here and just do it and babysit it. But if it's your first time doing this, yes, babysit this thing. See how we got that flour still trying to cook. It's going to be grainy. You're going to see it grainy like that. Not a problem. You're going to have little bits that stick and burn. Not burn so much, but stick and get discolored in here. So, you'll see that. Don't be scared. You'll smell it when it burns. Because everybody smelled burnt grease, like chicken fryer grease or something like that. Everybody smelled burnt grease. Everybody knows when it burns. And you start seeing little black pieces floating up, and you haven't been babysitting this thing, and you left it alone for 10 minutes because your kid or somebody called your attention away from this thing. It happens. It happens. All right, right now we are 23 minutes into this. Cut my fire down to medium heat. To the point now that I know that if I leave it alone for a minute, it's not going to burn on me. So we're just going to let that cook, start letting the stuff stick a little bit more to the bottom. So as it cooks and sticks to the bottom, you'll start getting more of that color change. See that right there? So what's going to happen is that flour is going to fall out. That oil is going to come to the top. That's why you keep stirring and keep stirring and keep stirring, because it's not going to emulsify. This thing is never going to emulsify. You're going to have some oil in there because the flour is going to soak it up, but this stuff right here will never emulsify. You're always going to have oil and flour separate. So that's why I don't use a whole bunch of oil, is because I'm going to end up wasting it anyway. And a lot of times, whenever I do this, I'll actually do 2 parts or 3 parts of flour to oil, to 1 part of oil. Just to where I'm not dumping a bunch of this grease out. I'm not wasting it. But it's for a little bit more advanced people who watch it, and I'll get this thing smoking hot. Once that grease is smoking hot, I'll just add that flour to it and I'll just whisk it, and I'll be done in like less than 20 minutes. But we're making a video here. We're gonna do it. Now you can also do this in your oven. I don't know if you know that or not, but you can also mix your oil and flour together and bake it in the oven. A lot of restaurants will do that because you're not gonna pay somebody to do this right here in a restaurant. If I put it in a big hotel pan, mix the flour and the oil together, throw it in the oven at like 300, 350 degrees and just let it rot out. You're not really gonna burn it at that constant temperature, but you're gonna cook it and it's gonna end up being just really, really dark. So, may make a video doing that one day. You just don't have that direct heat. You got that heat going everywhere around, and you can hit your camera like that. All right, so we're at that peanut butter stage now. I like mine a little bit darker. And I get to the point to where I like where that color's at, and then I'll turn it down low, 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 low. And I'll keep it warm. And I'm gonna show you that too. This video might be an hour long, but whatever. I wanna make sure you guys get the full effect with no cut scenes or nothing on how to make this. And I'm not gonna make it as dark as some of you like it. Like this dark. I'm not gonna make it that dark. I just don't like my roux like that. I don't. I never have, never will. I don't like it like that. So if you want to, you just continue the same process until it gets to that color. Now I'm making a big batch of turkey gumbo today. So I'm not gonna use all of this, but I may. It all depends on my stock. Actually, no, I'm not gonna use it because I'm gonna take some of that turkey and make some chicken salad nick. It's like a knockoff chicken salad nick. All right, starting to get that little darker peanut butter look right now. And if you want to switch back and forth with your whisk, you can do that. Make sure everything gets incorporated. You don't have to stick with one thing. Want this thing velvety, smooth. Let's see if we can get up in here. Got a lot of light going on here. Is that 4K? Read the barcode on that, Roux. Probably don't have the proper lighting for this, but you know, whatever. It's working. You gotta learn somehow. You gotta start somewhere. Just can't be good at something right off the bat. But I have watched a couple of these videos, these people doing roux, and they'll chop that thing down to like 5 minutes. I know some of you guys want to see how this kind of unfolds in the whole process. Like I said, once you get a little bit more advanced, you can leave it alone a little bit longer. I'm showing you guys this, that way you know kind of what's going on, the different colors. So I like my roux about this color, maybe a little slightly bit darker. I'm gonna turn this down to 2 now. Like I said, you can just keep going and keep going, as dark as you want it. But if you don't want it to burn, you gotta keep stirring. So remember what I told you earlier. Once you cut it down, this pot is not going to come right down. This heavy duty pot's gonna still be just as hot. So it's gonna take some time for it to come down. So if I walk away right now, I have a potential of burning this stuff. It's gonna sit, that flour is gonna go down to the bottom, the oil is gonna come to the top, and it's just gonna sit on that hot pan, and it's gonna have time to burn. And we're already 30 minutes into this. We dang sure don't want to mess it up now. There's another 30 minutes of your life wasted. But once we get this kind of cooled down to this number 2, this very low heat, then we can leave it alone. Leave it alone 5 minutes at a time, a couple minutes at a time, come back, keep stirring. And what's going to happen is that flour is going to sink to the bottom, the oil is going to come up to the top, and then every time you stir it, it's going to get a little bit darker, a little bit darker, a little bit darker. And then once you just leave it alone on low for like 5 minutes, and then you shut it off and remove it from the stove, all that grease, as much as possible, will separate from that flour. That flour will drop out, and you can drain all that grease there off of here. And so when you drain all this grease off of there, what happens is when you get done with your gumbo, you don't have to skim it. Because all that vegetable oil or whatever oil that you use to make this roux will not contaminate your gumbo. That way you have an oil slick. If you got any of this left over, you can make a gravy out of it. There's multiple things you can do with roux. Thickening, making soups, stocks, sauces, you know, whatever. And if you want to, one day when it's cold, rainy day like today, you can just make a big old batch of it when you're not doing anything and put it in the refrigerator. Put it in mason, let it cool. Put it in mason jars, put it in your refrigerator, let it cool, put it in ice cube trays. That way you have cubes of roux. If you're by yourself or you only got 1 or 2 people living in the house, you're not making big batches of stuff. There's a lot of ways you can do this. You see how pretty that is? How smooth that is? It's like natural peanut butter. So again, I like my roux this way because I like my gumbo a little bit thicker. I don't like it watery. And so this still has some power to thicken. It's going to give me my color. I'm going to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce to my gumbo. And I'm going to add this turkey stock back here. But we don't really need all the stock black, because every spoonful of my gumbo, you're gonna have everything. We're gonna make it thick enough to where you don't get water and rice, you get turkey, you get celery, onion, you get the whole flavor profile in every spoonful. And that's what I like. If you like to make yours more watery and you like broth and rice, that's fine. So now I'm just going to let this sit for a couple minutes. We're on 2 on the induction. We're on low. And we're just going to let it sit, kind of do its thing. Stock smells good. I'll show y'all something real quick while we're waiting on this roux. So I can get everything positioned. Look at that. So I got this stock pot from Ross or TJ Maxx or something like that. I got it for like 20 bucks. And it gets used quite often. But see all that? It's turkey, it's a whole turkey. So we're making gumbo, so it's perfect because you can use all the scraps, your onion, celery scraps, your garlic scraps, all that can just go in there. If you start that first, then do your roux, and you kind of stage it. Look at that. See how that thickened up on the bottom there? Ooh, that looks good. You can kind of stage your gumbo, like start with the stock, and then start making your roux. And by the time your roux kind of sits down and separates, and you take the oil off of there, then you can strain your stock, cut up your turkey or your chicken, or separate whatever you got in there that you're making stock with, seafood or whatnot. And then when you get back, you can just put your onions and stuff in here, start giving this roux some flavor, start adding that stock, a couple of hours reducing of that stock with this roux, cooking the flour out of it. Then you can start seasoning, and your protein's done. So the last thing you add is your protein to it. You're good to go. So this was 3 cups of flour, 2 cups of oil, and you see how this is? It's still watery. That's why I tell you I use more flour than I do oil, because usually I would do 3 cups to 1 cup. But this is gonna sit, it's gonna separate. So we're still on 2. I'm gonna keep this video rolling. Let's let it sit for a little bit longer, and then we'll scrape it again. And we'll just kind of go through the whole process. That way you can see the whole thing with no cuts, no edits, nothing. Tear that banana pudding. I'm about ready to tear that banana pudding. don't know how long it's been, but you can already tell that that flour has fallen out. See how that is? See how that flour just kind of falls out to the bottom? It's still cooking, it's still getting darker. But that's the way I like mine, right there. Pretty, 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 pretty. So, I'm gonna keep rolling with this. We're on 2. Still on 2. We're gonna let this basically fall out. And we'll keep it rolling. Why not? Might play some intermission music or something on this one, this video. That way you're not listening to us cook and whatnot. Alright. I'm really happy the way this looks. So I'm not going to cook it anymore. Pan's going to stay hot. I'm going to cut the fire off. I'm going to cut the fire off to this right here, and I'm gonna let it sit here, and then we can time lapse or speed this thing up to where it shows you how everything kind of falls out, and then you have the oil on the top, and then we'll at the end I'll show you how I'll remove the oil from the roux. I guess on a plane or something, I'll transfer all those videos from my Mac and my phone, all that hard drive. That way I can save some space, because these hour-long videos take up gigs. Huh? I haven't found a video on the internet that shows you how to make a roux from like start to finish without edits. So we're just gonna post the whole thing unedited. Maybe put some music in there or something, like intermission music. So. some. Definitely want to do some Jamaican jerky. First layer on the grill. We're going to do some jerky wings. I'm going to do floured fried wings. So like that. And what's the other flavor we want to do? I still got that piece for that stupid burner downstairs. I need it. Refill our GPS. That's llama polio, hot chicken. Because it's easy to clean.
You didn't love it on one. You're like, well, you know that, but stay out of the room. Why are you laughing at it? I hate you, sure. Who's not laughing at me? You're watching me. You got to get it really before. You don't laugh at people. You don't laugh at people. Get out. Get out.
party like a gumbo party because the gumbo party don't stop. All right, we are 52 minutes into this right now, and you can clearly see how it's still hot. You can clearly see how that separates right there. See how that oil, see how that separates there? Hopefully I get this on video because I'm really super good at making videos. See that? All right, so we're going to let this sit a little bit longer here. That way we can, once that oil kind of cools, that flour kind of cools down the bottom there, and this kind of cools down some, we'll be able to really just dump all that oil off of here. And that way you just have solid roux and you don't have an oil spill. So I know this video is super long and probably not going to get anybody watching it. Not the whole thing anyway. But I will come back and I will show you guys how we strain it. There's no need in recording it right now. So what I'm going to do is see how that oil right there? See how all that oil separates? So I'll come back and show you after it sits for a little bit how we skim it off and what we get at the end. Like I said, 45 minutes to an hour later, it's cooled down enough off the stove on a mat. And I'm gonna show you how to pour this grease off. It's just like that. You have your roux. And you have all this excess grease right here. And you just pour it off, just like that. So we used 3 cups in the beginning. So we're looking at almost a cup. All right, you can't see that, but it's just underneath a cup. So it goes to show you, if you use 1 cup of oil to 3 cups of flour, then you won't have any of this left over. But we're gonna zoom in here. I'll show you this. Look at this goodness. Look at that. And that, my friends, is what you want. Look at that. Look how smooth and velvety that is. It's perfect. Now, like I said, you may want it darker or you may want it lighter. That's your preference. It does not matter. This thing does 2 things: color and thickens. That's it. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment down below. If it's hateful, I'm just not going to get into it. But anyway, there you go. Roux from scratch. The whole thing. Appreciate you guys.